In August 1971, a psychologist at Stanford University ran an experiment that was supposed to last 2 weeks. It lasted 6 days. Not because it failed, but because what happened inside those 6 days was so disturbing, so psychologically violent, so deeply revealing about human nature, that continuing it would have been inhumane. What they discovered in those 6 days changed psychology forever. And it raised a question that none of us want to answer. Are you a good person? Or are you simply someone who has never been put in the right situation to find out? In the summer of 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo recruited 24 college students for a study on prison life. They were all psychologically healthy, emotionally stable, normal young men with normal lives. They were randomly divided into 2 groups. Half became prisoners, half became guards. The prison was built in the basement of Stanford University's psychology department. And from the moment the experiment began, something unexpected happened. The guards stopped being students. Within hours, they had begun to assert dominance. Within a day, they were humiliating prisoners. Within 2 days, they were conducting psychological torture, forcing prisoners to do degrading acts, depriving them of sleep, using punishment as entertainment. Nobody told them to do this. There was no script, no instruction manual for cruelty. They invented it themselves. And the prisoners stopped being students too. Within 36 hours, one prisoner had a complete psychological breakdown. He screamed. He cried. He couldn't function. He had to be released. By day 3, the prisoners had internalized their roles so deeply that they began to police each other, reporting on fellow prisoners, enforcing the guards' rules even when the guards weren't watching. They had forgotten. They were students. They had forgotten they could leave. On day 6, Zimbardo's girlfriend visited the experiment. She was not a psychologist. She had no academic investment in the study, and when she walked into that basement, she was horrified. She told Zimbardo to stop it immediately, and in that moment, Zimbardo realized something devastating. He had stopped being a researcher. He had become the prison superintendent, so absorbed in the role that he had lost the ability to see what was happening right in front of him. The experiment was shut down the next morning. Now here is what psychology says about why this happened. The answer is a concept called situational behavior. The idea that human behavior is not primarily driven by character or values, but by the situation a person finds themselves in. Zimbardo called it the Lucifer Effect, the process by which ordinary people can be transformed into perpetrators of evil not through malice, not through intention, but through the slow, invisible pressure of roles, rules, and social expectations. The guards didn't arrive at Stanford University as cruel people. They became cruel because the situation gave them permission, because the uniform gave them identity, because the role gave them power, because nobody stopped them. And the most disturbing part is that the same transformation happens in ordinary life every single day, in offices, in institutions, in governments, in families. Wherever there is a structure of power and a removal of individual accountability, the same psychological forces activate. This is what philosopher Hannah Arendt called the banality of evil. She observed the trial of Adolf Eichmann, one of the architects of the Holocaust, and expected to find a monster. Instead, she found a bureaucrat, an ordinary man, following orders, performing a role, not driven by hatred, not consumed by ideology, just doing his job. Arendt's conclusion was more terrifying than if he had been a monster, because monsters are rare, bureaucrats are everywhere, and this connects to something even deeper in human psychology. The research of Solomon Asch in the 1950s showed that people will deny the evidence of their own eyes to conform to the opinion of a group. In his experiments, participants were shown two lines, one clearly longer than the other. But when actors in the room confidently stated the shorter line was longer, 75% of participants agreed with them, at least once, against their own perception, against their own judgment, against reality itself, because the need to belong is older and deeper than the need to be right. And this is where philosophy asks the question psychology cannot answer. If our behavior is shaped by situation, if our perception is shaped by social pressure, if ordinary people can become instruments of cruelty simply by being placed in the right environment, then what exactly is a self? What is character? What is morality? Are they real, or are they just the behavior that emerges when the situation happens to be favorable? The Stoics believed that character was the only true possession a human being had, that external circumstances, wealth, status, power, even suffering, could not touch the inner life of a person who had cultivated virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote from the most powerful position in the known world, Emperor of Rome, and spent his private journals warning himself against the corruption of power, as if he knew that the situation he was in was exactly the kind that destroyed ordinary men. He was right to be afraid, because the Stanford prison experiment tells us that power doesn't reveal character. It reveals what was always beneath it, waiting, patient, ready to emerge, the moment the situation gave it permission. So here is the question that this experiment leaves you with. You believe you are a good person, and maybe you are. But have you ever truly been tested? Have you ever been given absolute power over another human being with no consequences for how you used it? Have you ever been placed in a system that normalized cruelty so gradually that you didn't notice it happening? Have you ever worn a uniform and felt yourself becoming the role? The students at Stanford thought they were good people too. Every single one of them. And 6 days later, some of them were inventing new ways to break the human spirit. Not because they were evil, but because the situation was designed perfectly to reveal what lives inside all of us. The capacity for darkness is not the exception of human nature. It is part of it. And the only defense is to know it is there, to see it clearly, to name it honestly, and to choose consciously, every single day, who you want to be, before the situation chooses for you. This is Veil of Being. Subscribe, because some questions don't just seek answers, they change how you see reality.